Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Dorothy Beninga. I post faith-based content every week here on YouTube. So if you love to hear about Jesus, if you love to talk about Jesus, please do well to subscribe to this channel. I try to make my background a bit aesthetically pleasing, but then of course I am borrowing my auntie's workshop. So of course, yes, you're going to see it's going to look like I'm a tailor or a fashion designer, but I'm not, okay? Alright, so I started watching another series. I remember the last time that I told you I was watching a series, it was The Chosen. Now I am watching House of David and I do not think I'm late. I know some of you have already watched House of David and you're still waiting for season 3. I just literally started season 2. But of course, if you do not know, House of David is the depiction of the story of David, okay? The story of King David. Now, of course, anytime I'm watching House of David, because it is a depiction, even while I was watching The Chosen, one thing that I always did was to pick my Bible, and of course, the makers of that movie actually made it very clear that they had to add some things, you know, just to make it a bit more relatable, just to add some details, okay, to the story. But of course, they're also Christians, so you know that they didn't do too much as far as I'm concerned. Of course, for The Chosen, because the story of Jesus was written in 4 different gospels, right? And it's almost like the part that this person didn't put, this person, you know, and everything was together. But then for the story of David, you know, it's just everything is just there as it is. Okay, I'm a bit excited, but then what I want to share with you today is of course about the life of David and a thought that came to my mind while I was watching it. Now, the story of David after Saul had gone and done what the Lord didn't tell him to do, you know, and then the Lord rejected Saul as king. Then God now sends Samuel to the house of Jesse. Jesse brings out all his sons without David, of course, who was shepherding. David is later on called, and God says he has anointed this one. David is anointed king of Israel at a very young age, probably as a teenager. But David doesn't become the king of Israel till a very long time later on in his life. Okay, he literally had to wait for like maybe 15, 17, because he became king of Judah before later on, you know, Israel. But then the whole thing that I'm trying to share is the fact that after David was anointed, David went back to shepherding. He continued his work as a shepherd, right? Eventually, he came into Saul's service because after the Spirit of God had left Saul. One thing that interests me is the fact that the Bible says that, you know, another spirit from God, not the Spirit of God. God sent another spirit to come and be tormenting, you know, to come and be tormenting Saul. Now that was how David got access into the palace or the king's, you know, service, and he started to play for Saul because every time he played for him, it calmed him down, you know, and the spirit wasn't tormenting him at certain moments. Now David had access to the throne, right, to the palace and everything, and a thought came to my mind while I was watching a certain episode that why didn't David just take advantage of the fact that he had access to this place and probably just end Saul's life? I mean, Saul was already rejected. He was rejected as king, right? And David was anointed. So why didn't he just take situation into his hands, you know, and claim the throne and everything? But then here is the thing that many of us do not understand, right? The fact that you have been chosen doesn't mean you can smuggle your way to the top. You still have to follow the process. Okay, of course, David was anointed, but then the process was long. The process took a while. There were so many things that had to happen in between before him getting to the position of actually sitting on that throne. It didn't mean that he was no longer chosen. No, he was still chosen, but then he had to go through a certain, you know, process. And part of that process is that, remember, the Bible says that Jesus grew in favor with who? With God and with men. David needed people, right? Yes, David built relationships. David needed people because eventually at the end of the day, you know, David, first of all, it was the friendship that he had with Jonathan. It was eventually after, you know, killing Goliath, the the trust that he gained from the people, or even the relationship with him and Saul eventually, and then the army and all whatnot, eventually you could see that these people that were in David's life were strategic, were very important to him achieving or fulfilling rather, that thing of him being on the throne. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this whole thing is the fact that many of us feel like we do not need people in our lives. We feel like we have it all together. We feel like, oh, I'm a one-man gang. I have the talent. I have the gift. I don't need people. God has already said this about my life, so I can just dismiss people, treat them ill, and just throw them away like they do not matter. I'm here to tell you today that if the Bible said that Jesus himself grew in favor with God and with men, then you need men. You need men in your life. You should never discredit or dismiss the fact that you need people in your life. And that just came to my mind while watching the story of David and thinking about everything that happened, during the process. And even him, I think at a point they said that the people of Judah, first of all, it got to the point that he gained their trust, and then they anointed him as their king of Judah, and then eventually of Israel, because Judah is a tribe, right? And then eventually as Israel, there was a growth process, eventualities. There were things that had to happen. Apart from the experiences he had to have, there were relationships that had to be built. Okay, so I'm here to encourage you today that if forever in your life you have ever felt that, oh, you don't need people, you got this, you do life on your own, do life by yourself without where depending on people or needing people is not a sign of weakness. It's just how God has made you to be. Because if Jesus grew in favor with God and also with men, it should tell you that even you, right, you need people that will favor you in your journey or in fulfilling what God has destined and appointed for you. Okay, so I hope you do have a fruitful week, and I'd hope that you begin to rethink your action towards the people that are in your life and start praying that God help me and put me in relationships and grant me favor with men. All right, so until I see you on my next video, it is goodbye for now.